Hello.
Bonjour.
Okay, the mics are working. Great.
How's everyone doing?
Very good. You want to...
Excited.
Bonjour tout le monde. Thanks for coming. This is part of like the pre-show, so it's technically not part of the show yet. We're really excited to do a second edition of North Star with Gabriel, Ian, Eleanor, and myself, Nectar. It's kind of also a signal that if you're not sitting, you should start sitting, basically.
Venez prendre une place. Venez vous asseoir.
How are you guys doing? Excited?
Good. Very excited. Great venue. Lots of people signed up. So excited. Great lineup of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, walking in this place felt a bit surreal. Last year was already such a big wow event. And I know you guys always push the limit, so I wasn't really surprised by anything. But when this room is going to be filled later today, it's big. Getting like 500 plus people in a room for any kind of event is quite something. To do this in Montreal in tech, that's really exciting.
Yeah, maybe you want to tell the story. You got inspired last year when you went to an event and you said, we got to go big.
Sure. Maybe a quick show of hands. Who attended the first edition of North Star last year? Just maybe a few show of hands. There you go. Okay, good chunk. Okay, good. We got repeat customers, so we have a very good LTV going here. Yeah, so the very quick recap of last year, and obviously I think we could all share it. It was at HEC downtown. Shout out to Theo that gave us the space for free. And we had Harley as the keynote. We had a bunch of young founders as the first lineup, and then a bunch of OGs, kind of a similar format as today. And I want to say I think it went well last year.
It was a great event. Great event.
Feedback was great. I think everyone was excited.
And to be quite frank, it was also a little unexpected in the sense it was done on sur une coin d'une table, as they say. And this year is a little bit the same. I don't know if people had fun waiting in line at the registration, but yeah, we're like basically a scrappy group organizing this. It's not like a big corporate entity, so a little bit of growing pains. But yeah, the feedback from last year was just like, you know, the KPI was, is it worth a founder's time? Like that was kind of what we were shooting for, and it seemed like we hit that last year. So that's what we're going to try to do again this year.
Yeah, I got a lot of good feedback last year that it's a great way to start the year. Starting the new year with an event like this, get a little bit of inspiration, kind of get pumped up for what's to come. And that was echoed a few times.
Some of the feedback I heard through the ecosystem following last year as well that I think we're already seeing in the room today was that it's so rare to get the right mix of people and get like a multi-generation aspect where you have, you know, some of the OG repeat founders from Montreal coming in, but also the new generation of students, entrepreneurs, or just, you know, young entrepreneurs are just getting started. And to mix that creates really some magic.
And I think part of the big success too was the decision to really focus on making it about entrepreneurs and try not to have the angels and the VCs and the supporting ecosystem at the event, and really focus on being about you guys, us, and really driving that home for the entrepreneurs in the room, and those who wanted to become entrepreneurs. I think that was a really good and successful decision.
So then the question became is like, okay, do we do this again? And if we do it, what does it look like? And you know, it wasn't like we had a lot of means last year, but we had a few sponsors that were nice enough to kind of chip in. But so then the big question is like, okay, what do we do this year? Do we do it again? And I think a big thing that kind of like changed my thinking around it was this event I attended last March. Has anyone heard of this thing called Socratica? Just maybe by a show of hands, a few people in Waterloo. Has anyone ever heard of it? Okay, so very briefly what it is, it's like this university student gathering from the University of Waterloo where they basically showcase a bunch of like passion projects on the stage. It's like nine projects, like quick demos, and it's not necessarily tech startups. There were a few tech startups, but it's like I'm writing a book on poetry, or I'm organizing this like social social event. And what was kind of nuts about it, it was like it started in 2022 in like a classroom over a weekend, and the 2025 edition filled up the hockey arena of Waterloo. It was like 2,500 people. It was just like an unreasonable amount of effort went into showcasing these projects of these young students. And I was like, shit, like maybe we should think bigger for North Star as well. Last year like was really cool. We had HEC, and this year's like, well, let's try and find a venue to match it, and also, showcase ambition, because we will have ambitious entrepreneurs. So that was kind of the foundation of this year.
So lucky for us or unlucky for us, Nectar got the idea to triple the size of the event. But it worked out. It's a beautiful space, a lot of registrations, a lot of excitement for the lineup that we have. Do you want to talk a little bit about who we have coming up?
Yeah, well, we have pretty good. Maybe we'll start with the keynote, because we have Dax and Fred, which like obviously huge fans of, and maybe Eleanor, you know like Fred a little bit. I think you're on the cap table, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, what can we expect for Fred?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, so I'm a partner at Bright Spark. We were the first investor in Hopper, which is Fred's second tech company. And we also jumped in almost with no question asked when he also decided to co-found Deep Sky, his carbon capture company that I'm sure you'll hear about both today. Fred is kind of my North Star entrepreneur since I've been started in VC, so I kind of benchmark almost every founder I meet to Fred, which is not fair to all of these folks. But he has a crazy amount of energy and brain power, a really good vision of seeing where the world is going that usually kind of looks crazy today to the normal person, which usually leads to building legendary companies. So as a VC, this is very exciting, but he can kind of throw things on stage that feel completely unrealistic or out of whack, but that's the magic a little bit of Fred alone, if you ask me.
Do you guys know Dax at all?
I know Dax a little bit, great entrepreneur as well. I think what's really interesting or exciting is both of the entrepreneurs that we have in this conversation had a similar journey in terms of starting as entrepreneurs and then had a kind of a second act of something a little bit more impact focused. So I'm really curious to hear how they both think about that and what was the decision to drive for their second act.
And so like obviously, as you could tell, like we're using this moment to like hype up the day. So like we also have a pretty good second key panel, like the opening act, I want to say, with Adrian, Henry, and LP. And honestly, each of these three guys could have been on the keynote themselves. So again, they could be pretty stacked unicorn panel. And you guys know, I think, all of them differently. So curious, maybe Ian.
Yeah, I met Adrian about 12 or 13 years ago when we started Founder Fuel. And this guy sort of walked into Notman House and said, I hear there's startups here. I want to give a hand. I'm new to Montreal. I'm from Toronto. Super unassuming guy. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, come on in. Let's chat. And today, Alaya Care is this giant company, global footprint. I think he is incredibly smart. Very, very visionary. I think he'll have a lot of great things to say. And it's interesting because he's very poised and calm, which is, quite the opposite of an LP Maurice, which, maybe Gabriel you can talk about. But really excited to see what Adrian has to say. Super smart guy, and I think you guys will, if you don't know him, I think you will really enjoy the things he has to say.
Yeah, it should be an interesting combination of entrepreneurs. We have two entrepreneurs that raise venture capital. We have Henry from Misplay, who bootstrapped his business, had a very successful outcome in terms of being able to exit it to private equity. LP, really exciting founder. I think what's interesting about all of them is they all give back to the community. They're able to make time for events like this, and individually throughout the years, whether it's being mentors at Founder Fuel or just being involved in the community, they've been very generous with their time.
Something I'll add that, big credit to you guys in building this agenda is we're getting people on stage that we don't see all the time on stage as well. A lot of these founders, builders are kind of heads down, more kind of people. Will not do like 10,000 of these in a year. So the fact that they show up today, I think that's also makes some really good stories that we don't necessarily hear all the time in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly true for like LP. LP, if you guys don't know him from BuzzBud, was like this like larger than life figure in the ecosystem for so long. And then he's like, okay, screw that. I'm just gonna go heads down and build, and basically went into hibernation. And you'll see a little bit of what he's been doing with this company, which is pretty impactful. But when you hear him speak, it's just like you could tell he's had the scars, but also very, I want to say, like almost like self-aware of what it takes to be a founder, right? So I think it should be really interesting.
You want to talk a little bit about the recent student panel?
Yeah, sure. Well, they're not quite students, so it's like young founders. I don't know if that's politically correct to call it, but yeah, it's basically a bunch of young founders, and we have like
We
four
do
really.
old founders as well, or that's not okay?
This is like
Isn't
the
that
old
Fred and
bad
Dax?
panel. Yep. If I go back to the student/young founder panel from last year, it's like I didn't really know them. It was like thankfully because of Ashusin McGill's connections, particularly Aaron last year, that helped us kind of like scoop up these younger folks. And I was like, they're just brilliant. And like two of those companies have since went on to raise like incredible amounts. One from the Valley, one from like a tier 1 Canadian VC. And I was like, okay, this is going to be great for my deal flow if I get these young people on the stage. But they're young and they're like super bright and super ambitious. And I think that's what we can expect with their first panel as well.
I had the chance to moderate last year student founder panel, and I think it was so exciting to see every time I spend time with people who are kind of just coming out of university or still in it, the vision, the excitement, the ambition behind it, and like we are also now today at the start of a new tech cycle, so we have even more to learn from the younger folks, like the way companies are built and scale today look very different than what a SaaS company looked like 10 years ago at the seed stage. And this new generation who don't necessarily have the scars or the baggage of doing companies in the past can be like a really good source of inspiration in terms of adapting and building for the future as well.
Yeah, I think one of the comments I got from several OG founders that were listening to that panel was they were very impressed in terms of what level the student or the young founders were starting. I think when we started with Founder Fuel, a lot of entrepreneurs would come in and there was so much for them to learn in terms of the fundamentals around unit economics or growth or whatever it is. But they were already at such a young age so self-aware around what they need to do and what the playbook was.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. And so we're going to reveal some of the stats in terms of like audience in the room, but it's like, so there's basically two key personas, or I want to say three, but two main, the ones that we focused on is founders at any stage, students that are obviously interested in entrepreneurship, and then ecosystem friends. We did let in a few VCs, like myself included. So there's a few investors that are hanging
Only
around.
the good ones.
Yeah. So yeah, and in particularly in the students, I find it's interesting because there's not that many tech events geared towards attracting students. So I think showing them what's possible, especially building here, and maybe that's a separate subject. I think it's pretty cool that we're able to showcase the scale of the founders that we have in this province.
Yeah. You were talking a little bit about the difference between this year's North Star and last year's North Star. I think it's really great to see how the community and the industry in general has shifted a lot. I remember going into North Star last year, reflecting over the holidays, it felt like a dark period, right? 2024 felt like everything was difficult, things were not going in the right direction, and January felt a little bit like a pivot point. I don't know if it was because of North Star.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was
for sure.
But
No, but you're right. The energy level in general, I think, at least that we feel it in Montreal, and I think globally as well, the tech scene seems to have sort of a new sort of blood to it, or like it was pretty grim in 23, 24, and now I feel like there's a new energy in place. So that's really good, and it's all because of North Star. We know that.
I think several funds recently announced, including Montreal Capital. We had really exciting news. I think most of us were at an event last week at Mila. Really exciting news about Mila Ventures. And so a lot of momentum, a lot of funds, local funds being announced.
Yeah, I think when I don't remember what's the anniversary for Tech Poutine actually, but like when we started, the idea was to give back some of that energy and that oomph that made Montreal so special over the last decade in the tech industry, and we all felt like we were coming out of a dark period a little bit. North Star is doing somewhat the same mission of just bringing folks together, building energy, inspiring people. And I really feel like we're changing gears right now in Montreal, and it's true as the last year. People, like, there's more capital in the market, there's going to be more soon. Some funds are just getting closed now, announced at the early stage, so pre-seed, the folks are backing the companies from day zero. We see more repeat entrepreneurs coming to market, we see more scientists turning into entrepreneurs, and we see companies that use the tougher years, I think, to build smartly. You know, with scarcity, you have to be creative. And I'm really hopeful we're going to see also some of these companies really emerge as very large tech companies that can become acquired themselves and so on. I'm pretty excited about building in Montreal right now.
That's very cool. I think probably a good way to end our little live pod / pre-show. The show is going to be starting in 9 minutes, so grab your seats, attachez vos trucs, as they say, and we'll see you guys in a few. Thanks.
Merci tout le
Thanks,
monde.
guys.
Have a
Have a
good
good
afternoon.
show.